Hello friends, this is Worm, and I figured today would be a good day to revive a really old video series we have here on the channel, and that is our discussion series. And in this series, basically, we just talk about random aspects of the game, and kind of anything that entails is what follows. It's going to be off the top of my head, which most of my videos are. But with that being said, I wanted to talk about older raids in Destiny 2, and this is kind of, you want to call it a part 2 of the previous video that I did like more than a year ago or something like that. But I felt like it was time to talk about some of the older raids that are present in Destiny 2 that really need some love. Now, there are a lot of different, I guess, categories you could put old raids into. You could talk about raids that, don't have reprised roles. Things like, basically Deepstone Crypt and beyond are the newer ones, and anything pre-Deepstone Crypt is like an older one, but there's in my opinion there's a lot of different categories. But when I think of an older raid in Destiny 2, I think of a raid that is not really done for its loot. Okay, think things like Vault of Glass, think things like Vow of the Disciple, things like Kingsfall, sorry. These are older raids, and not saying they're not good. Like, I love Kingsfall is easily my second favorite raid in Destiny's history, right next to Wrath of the Machine, which is not in Destiny 2, but that's a topic for another time. But with that being said, it's unfortunate because the loot in there is just not really all that worth it. I think probably the most valuable weapon from that raid, maybe Zowlie's Bane, which is a pretty decent hand cannon, but especially now that we got like Luna's Howl, just for example, like Zowlie's Bane kind of getting power crept out. I mean, look at some of the other weapons. You have like Midas Reckoning. Midas Reckoning is not a good fusion rifle. Quillam's Terminus is not really a good machine gun. Doom of Chelchis is a neat scout rifle, but it's not the best, and I wouldn't even say it's really a good scout rifle. Like, it has some cool rolls, but that's about it. Defiance of Yasmin, good inside PvP, but that's kind of it. Like, the rolls are just out of date. They're not as good. And of course, Kingsfall is a little bit more of a recent raid than some of the other ones. Look at Garden of Salvation as another example. Garden of Salvation is in desperate need of some type of rework. Okay, literally, I don't think anybody does Garden of Salvation just because it's fun. In fact, the only reason I see people doing Garden of Salvation nowadays is for Divinity runs, if they're carrying somebody for a Divinity. And really, since Divinity's nerf, I think that Divinity is not picked as an exotic option as much anymore. And so really, there's just nobody doing Garden of Salvation. And I hear a lot of people talk a lot of smack about Garden of Salvation, and I don't really understand why. Like, from what I remember about mechanics and stuff, it was a really good raid. It was a fun raid. I think that everybody talks smack about it just because of the fact that it's been around for so long, and it's probably had so many completions. Like, I think the people that hate on Garden of Salvation have completed it so many times, and they associate, things like the Divinity quest, which was arguably miserable for some. It wasn't really that bad to me, but you have people that, they had a miserable time on it, so that left kind of a bad taste in their mouth. Garden of Salvation really wasn't that bad of a raid. It's just really old, and the loot compared to stuff that we have now is just really not all that great. And we'll come back to Garden of Salvation in just a minute and talk more about it. But another category that you could divide up, older raids into is raids that don't have crafted weapons. And I think there's only two raids that are currently fitting this bill, and that's Garden of Salvation being one and Vault of Glass being the other one. Vaults of Glass, I don't necessarily think needs craftable weapons right now. Like, the rolls that you get from Vault of Glass weapons are all very good. Fatebringer is a very good hand cannon. Still, the rolls that you can get on it are still fantastic. Vision of Confluence, same thing. Corrective Measure is a very strong machine gun. Like, Vault of Glass has some really decent weapons, and yeah, they're getting older. They're getting kind of to a point where they're being power crept by other stuff, but I wouldn't say they're nearly as bad as, the Garden of Salvation raid. Like, Garden of Salvation's weapons, about the best roll you can get on, say, like the hand cannon is Outlaw and Dragonfly, Outlaw and Kill Clip, which not a bad combo, but it's also it's been power crept. Now we have Firefly, which is just a better version of Dragonfly. And especially because Ancient Gospel, the hand cannon we're referring to, has a solar is solar damage. Like, Firefly, I mean, just would make the weapon better all around. But with that being said, like the rolls are just, they're old, they're out of date. You know, what is it? Oh goodness, Reckless Oracle. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name. Reckless Oracle is another example. Like it doesn't have any outstanding perks. Like it's got Outlaw in the first column, and I think what is it? Maybe Swashbuckler? No, not Swashbuckler. I can't remember. I think you can get Outlaw and Kill Clip on it as well. And again, I don't want to smack talk Outlaw and Kill Clip. That's a certified classic. It's a good combo, but at the same time, in a meta where we have so many options for subclass synergies, like look at the Riposte 720 Void auto rifle. Just like Reckless Oracle, it can roll with destabilizing rounds and repulsor brace. Like, why would I want to use Reckless Oracle when I could go get a Riposte that has, you know, a more synergistic role? And of course, Riposte, you know, there's arguments to be made about Riposte, that it's more of a PvP weapon, and really the only PvE role that it has is repulsor brace and destabilizing round. But still, that's like, for me personally, why would I want to use a weapon that doesn't have subclass synergy? Like, subclass synergies just make more sense, with the exception of maybe Strand. You know, if I'm on Strand Titan, I'm probably not going to use a hatchling weapon, but you know, a weapon with what is it? Not Sever, Slice. Yeah, I'll use that. Synergize with a subclass, perfect. You know, and so this older raid, you know, not Vow of Disciple, sorry, Garden of Salvation. I keep losing my train of thought. Garden of Salvation, Volta Glass, like, it would be nice to see them brought in with some, you know, subclass synergies. And speaking of subclass synergies, I want to talk about some, you know, these weapons currently, they don't really stand out of the meta. The weapons from Volta Glass and the weapons from Garden of Salvation, they don't really stand out to me. You know, we have how many 140 hand cannons that are solar now? We have Zali's Bane. We have what's the one that came with Into the Light? Luna's Howl. Sorry, I forgot the name of it. We have a bunch of weapons. We also have, you know, outside of in-game weapons or difficult to obtain, we have world drops like Annual Skate, you know, that has you know, basically comparable roles to something like Ancient Gospel. Like, if we were to reprise these weapons, like, would we want to see changes to the damage types? Now, obviously in my heart, I'm like, oh no, like, I wouldn't want to see them tread on classics. But at the same time, we saw Breachlight just this episode brought back as a Strand weapon, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. I love that weapon, and it's got some really good rolls. So maybe we could see the change in some potential, you know, damage archetypes and stuff like that. For example, I think that currently we are a little bit lacking in the Void 140 hand cannon department. Like, off the top of my head, I can't think of any hand cannons that are void damage and 140 rounds per minute. Now, I'm sure you can go in the comments and tell me one. That's totally fine if you want to do that. But maybe Ancient Gospel could be made into a void weapon. Then it could have some void synergy, you know. Maybe Reckless Oracle could be put in the arc category. I know that currently there's no 720 arc auto rifles outside of Sorrow's or Sweet Sorrow, which is a really dated weapon at this point. So maybe we could see that brought back as a, you know, a weapon with arc or something like that. In terms of the two kinetic weapons from the raid, from Garden of Salvation, we got Sacred Provenance and Accrued Redemption. I think both of these are actually pretty unique. If my memory serves me correctly, Sacred Provenance is the only, besides Blast Furnace, Sacred Provenance is the only other 140, aggressive burst pulse rifle in the game. Kinetic, that is. I know there's plenty of, you know, you got Belisarius, which is Strand, and, you know, Disparity, which is States, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think that we should change the damage type of Sacred Provenance, but just give it some of those unique combinations that we saw kind of like we did with Blast Furnace. But instead of going down the route of getting everything that Blast Furnace had, let's try to like shift it a little bit. You know, Blast Furnace, for example, had Rapid Hit in the 4th column. Switch it around, leave Rapid Hit in the 3rd column, leave Kinetic Tremors in the 4th column, put, you know, Firefly in the 4th column. Just, you know, switch up its perks and stuff like that. Maybe put Demo in the 3rd column. I know that me personally, any weapon I see that has Demo in the 3rd column, I try to get a roll of it, because that's a very unique role. And the 4th column is typically reserved for subclass synergizing perks, so you could get Demolitionist and Incandescent, which would be awesome. Demolitionist Volt Shot, Demolitionist Destabilizing Rounds, you know, or in Sacred Provenance's case, Demolitionist and Kinetic Tremors or something like that. You know, I'd leave it up to Bungie on what weapon rolls to put to make there be a unique distinction between the two. But the last thing I'd want to say was, make Sacred Provenance a strand or stasis weapon. Like, we have a strand aggressive pulse rifle. That is Belisarius. Belisarius is an amazing pulse rifle in both PvP and PvE. We have Disparity, which is a stasis. I'm sorry if I get that, if I say strand or stasis. Like, I know the damage archetypes, but I'm gonna get them confused at some point. But Disparity is a stasis damage aggressive frame pulse rifle, so it's got that aggressive 4-round burst. It's got some fantastic rolls. I mean, maybe we could say, hey, let's have another stasis, aggressive pulse rifle. But I mean, at the same time, it's like I don't really know if that's like necessary, so to speak, right? So I think keeping it as as kinetic. Sorry, I told you I get confused. I think keeping it as kinetic would probably be just a completely fine idea. But we could keep talking about Garden of Salvation forever, and its loot drops and stuff. But let's talk about the actual mechanics of Garden of Salvation. There are a lot of bugs in that raid that just need to be changed and fixed. And I know that one of the things that was very popular about that raid, and one of the reasons probably why people don't do it, is because there were so many bugs that you could take advantage of to complete an encounter very quickly, that people literally sat and did, like say the second or third encounter over and over and over again, got the boss killed in one phase very easily because they did the glitch where you could pick up an infinite amount of the I can't remember the name of it, but the buff that you have, to break the shields and whatnot. People did that so much. They did one phase at so many times, they did it over and over and over again. They got all the god rolls that they wanted. Like, it's time Bungie goes in there and changes that. And I know that nobody likes when things like that are changed. Okay, like, I mean, take for example Riven. Riven came back with Pantheon. They patched the cheese that Riven had, and people were freaking out about it. Guys, Riven is not a difficult boss fight. In fact, when I did Riven for my Pantheon run, for my last Pantheon run at minus 20 power, we were able to one phase her at minus 20 power, completely legit and normal. Like, wasn't difficult, but of course the fact that people had never done it legit, that was problematic. And I think Garden of Salvation is probably going to have some of that same potential. So, they should patch these bugs out and make players do it legit. And again, I know that people don't like that, because when you've experienced something in one way for so long, it's frustrating when you now have to do it a different way. It's almost like changing the raid encounters. Imagine, you're going in to kill Rolk, for example, and you go in one time and, you kill him just normal, blah, blah, blah. But then the next week, Bungie updates it and they completely change the boss fight. Now you can't use swords against Rolk, for example, or, Rolk is no longer walking around. Now he's got some other attack, and they kind of did this with Pantheon. They added some little plot twists and stuff like that just to switch it up, but nothing was really substantially changed. But with the Riven fights, if you did not know how to do it legit, it was kind of jarring. It's almost like, doing a raid for the first time, essentially. And I know that a lot of people didn't like that, but at the same time, for the fun factor of the game, to bring back that fun factor, Bungie needs to fix these. In fact, like, just a fun story. I was in there with my son watching Bluey a second ago, and one of the things that one of those little puppy dogs said was, "Why can't we change the rules? Why can't we change rules?" And I applied this to Destiny. Why can't we change the rules? Well, the rules are in place to make encounters fun. Okay, Riven, the cheese was fixed because now people have to do it legit. The legit fight is way more fun than cheesing her. And yeah, cheesing her is faster, it gets you loot better and stuff like that. But in terms of fun factor, you've got to let go of some of the cheese. Like, doing stuff legit, like Rolk, for example. Everybody was cheesing Rolk during Pantheon. Yeah, it got it done, but like, was it fun to do it like that? I mean, maybe if you've done Rolk 25 million times, it's fun to do it once just for the lulz. Like, I know I cheesed him once just for the lulz. I said, hey, I just want to cheese him once just to see, like, just to actually watch him go, way off the map and stuff. It was fun, but so many people were cheesing it because they were just trying to get the loot. And it's like, if Bungie had patched that, would players have lost their mind? Yeah, probably. But going back to Garden of Salvation here, I think they just need to patch out some of the bugs, you know, change some of the cheese stuff. And Garden of Salvation, it's not like you can't cheese the boss, like one shot the boss or anything like that. And there are mechanics that you can just circumvent, like, you know, that final boss phase, like, you know, there are mechanics that you can circumvent. And I'm not saying that Bungie should patch those out, because they don't need to be patched out. Like, that's just, you know, if it's similar to like for example, a Lorelei Splendor Titan pre-nerf. Like, that was an incredibly power helmet that allowed you to circumvent so many, you know, things that were an aspect of raid encounters and other encounters, that, like, hey, it doesn't matter now. I can literally stand here forever. You could just stand there forever and never ever die. You could be swarmed by Thrall. You could be getting hit by 5-6 knights, and you would not be injured. You wouldn't, the second you went red bar, it would pop a sunspot that would just basically full heal you, right? So, and I'm not saying we need to like fix and patch out things like that, but like the cheeses, the actual bugs and stuff that really shouldn't be happening, get those fixed. But that's enough about Garden of Salvation. I want to talk about Volta Glass, because Volta Glass, I think, definitely has more standing within the community. If you're a Destiny 1 veteran, you are familiar with Volta Glass, and you would probably agree that Volta Glass is one of the best raids that has ever been made. That's debatable to me. I think that a lot of people just hold it close to their hearts because of nostalgia. It's a fun raid. I really like the aesthetic of it. You know, you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper underground to find the Vex, and you get to that final room, and it's like, wow, awe-inspiring amazingness. But at the same time, I haven't done Volta Glass in, I don't even know how many years at this point. Like, it's been years since I've done Volta Glass. Why? Because I've got the god rolls that I wanted to. And of course, with Volta Glass, I think the main thing is that it needs craftable weapons, and it needs origin traits too. You know, none of those weapons have origin traits, and it would be nice to do something. And again, I don't even want to try to speculate what Volta Glass origin trait would look like, but, you know, Bungie, I'd leave it up to them do that. But yeah, an origin trait plus just refresh rolls. You know, maybe on Vision of Confluence we could see Dragonfly Incandescent, similar to how we saw with no, I'm sorry, not Dragonfly Incandescent, Firefly Incandescent, similar to how we saw with Nullify, the raid pulse rifle from Salvation's Edge has Firefly and Incandescent. That's a super awesome roll. Put it on Vision of Confluence. But I think also if you do that, you are running the risk of kind of tiptoeing, like, oh, like, you know, where's one gonna shine and one not? Like, outside of, anti-champion mods, Vision of Confluence with Firefly and Incandescent, it's gonna do the same thing as Nullify, because both are in those long-range, hard-hitting archetypes. But still, having the ability to do that would be nicer than not, because currently, I mean, well, you can get like rewind rounds in Firefly, which isn't bad, but it's also like, it's just kind of boring now. Throw in some subclass synergy, I don't know. But there's a lot of weapons that could use some updates from Volta Glass as well. And of course, you could also look at changing archetypes of damage, you know, change Fatebringer into a strand weapon. You know, change Vision of Confluence to an arc weapon. Like, I don't really know. Again, it's not my place to say what would be good on where. I think the heavy weapons actually could probably use the most touching up. I mean, goodness, look at Corrective Measure. Like, how many 450 round per minute void machine guns do we have now? We got Hammerhead, most recent one. We got Corrective Measure. We have Commemoration. Like, I would personally take Commemoration or Hammerhead over Corrective Measure any day of the week, just because they're refresh rolls. So maybe if they brought back Volta Glass and reprice it, change it to like a 450 stasis weapon. There you go. You know, I think the only 450 stasis machine gun we have is Chain of Command, which is a curated roll. It's got Demo and Adrenaline Junkie, which is a pretty decent combo. But at the same time, it's the only one we have, and it doesn't have random rolls. Bring back Corrective Measure as a stasis weapon. You know, changing the damage archetypes or changing the damage types, elemental types would be a good idea. But beyond just that, of course, we mentioned King's Fall earlier, and I think what Bungie really should be doing. Actually, before we go into those two, what Bungie should have done, and who knows, maybe we see it happen. Maybe we see it happen coming, you know, later on in this episode. But this season is Vex themed. I don't know why Bungie did not use this as an opportunity to reprise either Volta Glass or Garden of Salvation, or both. Like, both of those raids are Vex themed. You know, the enemies that you face there are Vex. The Soul Divisive, which is the Vex that are in the Garden of Salvation, they actually worship the Witness. So like, Garden of Salvation would have been the perfect opportunity would have been like the perfect opportunity. And again, who knows, we could potentially see, maybe as a surprise, it's starting in Act 3 or something like that, Bungie does reprise Volta Glass roles. Maybe they reprise the whole raid. You know, now we're fighting those Vex with the little collars on them. You know, y'all know what I'm talking about. What do they call the controlled Vex? I can't remember the name of them, but they have a specific name. But you know, maybe we could see Garden of Salvation or Volta Glass brought back with those. I don't see that. I don't really know if that's going to happen, because again, most things, like especially when it's a raid reprisal, we know about them pretty far in advance. I don't see Bungie just surprising us on, like, hey, congratulations, here is Garden of Salvation, refreshed weapons, refreshed raid, go have fun. Like, I don't see them doing that. I don't see them doing that with Bolts of Glass. Again, I would love to see it. I would be more than happy if Act 3 were to drop and like there's just a banner when you log in that says, you know, the Volta Glass is open with new stuff, go explore it, you know, and then we go do it, and it's, you know, reprise rolls or crafted rolls on these weapons, or hell, go even crazier and say they bring back archetypes of weapons like you know, Atheon's Epilogue, 900 round per minute auto rifle or something like that. They completely just change up the weapons. Like, that would be really, really awesome. But I don't see that happening, and I don't know why, because this would have been the perfect season. Actually, I do know why. This would have been the perfect season, but I think also Salvation's Edge just dropped, and they don't want to like stack two raids too close together. You know, what we've had in the past, raid drops at the yearly expansion, then we get a dungeon the next season, then we get a reprise raid the next season, so the third season of the year, and then the fourth season of the year we get another dungeon, and by that point it's time to roll over into our next big expansion, which features a raid. So it's raid dungeon, so on and so forth. With this, if they were to do that, if they were to do, you know, this you know, drop Volta Glass or Garden of Salvation, it would be raid, and then another raid release, and then a dungeon, and then a reprise raid. Like, I don't know exactly how they do it. And I think that's probably the reason why they decided not to, you know, revamp Volta Glass or Garden of Salvation. I could be totally mistaken in that, but, you know, I highly doubt that nobody at Bungie had the idea of reprising Volta Glass and Garden of Salvation and making them, you know, up to date, giving them up to date loot and stuff like that. Like, I can't fathom anybody at Bungie just not thinking that at all. Like, I know that somebody probably thought about it, brought it up, and they didn't do it, probably for a good reason, but I would also kind of like to know that reason. But moving on from Garden of Salvation and Volta Glass, I do want to talk about King's Fall, Vow of the Disciple, and some stuff like that. Vow of the Disciple, of course, was the first raid where we ever got crafted weapons. And of course, at the time, the weapons were fantastic. You know, Deliverance was the first ever weapon with chill clip. And in fact, it was the only weapon that had chill clip on it for a very long time. So Deliverance was a very sought after weapon from that raid. Well, now, of course, in time's gone on, we have tons of weapon with chill clip. You know, Riptide outshines Deliverance in basically every way. Actually, I'm not sure, does Deliverance freeze in 2 hits or is it still 3? Because I know Bungie, they wanted to change it because Riptide was so overbearing compared to everything else. They wanted to reduce, you know, the slowed stacks for Riptide specifically, so that it takes 3 shots, but then other fusion rifles like Arvindil, for example, takes 2. Does Deliverance take 2 or 3? I don't know. Somebody tell me in the comments. But with that being said, it had good rolls at the time, but now, again, it's kind of been power crept out, you know. And remember, Vow of the Disciple was dropped at a time, and same thing with King's Fall. Both of these raids were dropped at a time when, or I'm sorry, not King's Fall, just Vow of the Disciple. Vow of the Disciple was dropped at a time when the only 3.0 subclass we had was Void. Okay, it dropped literally at the same time that Void 3.0 dropped in the game. So naturally, it wasn't really the recipient of a lot of subclass synergy, because of course the next season we got Solar, the season after that we got Arc. Well, the raid was already launched, so things like Insidious, for example, is a aggressive Arc pulse rifle. Didn't get Volt Shot on it, didn't get Eddy Current on it. Like, these would have been awesome perks to see. Let's see, what's another weapon? Lubray's Ruin didn't get Incandescent on it. Cataclysmic also didn't get Incandescent. You know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head and stuff like that. It was also before Kinetic Tremor. So maybe if we reprise these raid rolls from Vow of the Disciple, we could see, you know, Submission roll with Kinetic Tremors. That would be pretty awesome. You know, but it came at a time when the only 3.0 synergy we had was with Void, and the only subclass synergizing 3.0 perk we had in the game at that time was Repulsor Race. And of course, lest I be mistaken, none of the weapons from Vow to the Disciple are void. I'm going through them right now in my head because I want to make sure I don't say that and then I'm just proven wrong. But I'm pretty sure that none of them are void. Yeah. So, you know, it would be, except for Collective Obligation. I know Collective Obligation was void. And I think that the whole Collective Obligation was designed at a time when there was a lot of hype for Void 3.0, because Collective Obligation, I think it needs a catalyst or it needs a rework to make it better. But with that being said, Vow of Disciples also raid that is in need of some type of updates. Its weapon rolls just feel really out of date. And I think all Vow of Disciple needs is a refresh to its weapon pool. Like the encounters, mwah, Vow of the Disciple is so good. Actually, I take that back. Vow of the Disciple, I think edges out. I think Vow of the Disciple edges out King's Fall. Wrath of the Machine still is the best. Like I had the most fun with Wrath of the Machine. It was a crazy fun raid. It was very unique. Vow of the Disciple I think comes in second, and then King's Fall comes in third. So yeah, I don't think any mechanics need to change, and there's really not a lot of cheese that you can do in Vow, with the exception of Rolk, which you've been able to cheese Rolk forever. I mean, I remember, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Cheese Forever did a video like literally a couple weeks, maybe a couple months post Witch Queen drop, talking about a cheese for Rolk. And I don't know, I guess it just never caught on until Pantheon. And then Pantheon came around and it's like, you've been able to do this forever. But yeah, that's Vow of the Disciple. I think all the other raids beyond that, you know, Deepstone Crypt, good to go. Of course, Root of Nightmares is good. Salvation's Edge is the newest raid. Of course, that one's fine. Crota's End also fine. Has that, you know, has great encounters, great synergy with the weapons, the armor, stuff like that. So I think that, you know, there's a couple raids that just, they need to be touched up. We kind of talked about some ideas to how we could touch them up and stuff. And yeah, that's kind of it for our discussion video today. I want to hear your thoughts on everything that we've talked about. How would you reprise Garden of Salvation and Volta Glass? Like, would you change anything, or would you change archetypes, weapons? Just tell me what you'd do to it. Of course, if you have any videos that you want to have a discussion about, leave them in the comments. If they are juicy enough, I'll do an individual dedicated video. If they're not, I'll probably just collect some ideas and then talk about them all in one video. But yeah, that being said, we're encroaching 28 minutes, so I'm going to cut this. Guys, thank you for watching. Do me a favor, hit the like button, helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content. And do me another favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you will like them. We'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.